You can't take risk with people's money. Same for medicine. You can't try with other processes on how to save someone. When you see problems from the outside, sometimes you think that it's really a problem, but sometimes it's actually not a problem. Same buy-ins. I think you will never get it. That's my hard opinion. So if you got your buy-in about to do an implementation, you need a bigger roadmap on whatever you want to do.
With over 9 years' experience as a seasoned product manager, Michel Nkansah has built a diverse portfolio across the legal, financial, education, and property sectors in Africa and the UK. He has consistently delivered innovative solutions through high impact projects for various organizations. He believes that technology and innovation can be implemented across all industries with the right approach.
Do we have to study the law in a different way? So that got me into testing, prototyping some ideas, which ended up in working with some of the best legal tech companies in Ghana. But the legal profession, the financial ecosystem, the medical system or medicine is very, 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 very sensitive.
So, sit tight and listen to how you can ideate and implement solutions in whichever industry you find yourself. Enjoy. Your LinkedIn profile reads, "My dad hopes I will defend someone in the court one day, but I ship products for a living. Will you ever be to the court?"
I don't think I can say that for sure now because I have to finish my legal education. I think the primary thing when everybody goes to law school is to hold a law license, which is why my dad took me to law school initially. But also, I think it brings up a different conversation about what else can you do when you go to law school, when you take legal education. The basic thing that we know in Ghana or primarily Africa is that you go to law school to become a lawyer, but I think that narrative is changing. People are now doing a lot of things with the law. Traditionally, you find that people used to come to study the law for the second degree, but now people study the law and go on to do something else. So that is changing now. I studied the law, I have mastered the law, but I'm primarily in tech. So there's a bigger gap there, which is about doing alternative things when you study the law. But if I sit here to tell you that I won't go to court one day, I think my dad will beat me up.
So I take it as you thinking of getting the license one day then?
Yeah, one day. Yeah, I think I'll keep that off camera. But yeah, you see that very soon.
Yeah, cool. All right. So now let's talk about you mentioned about the gaps, right? And for you in particular, you have found a gap within the industry, the industry you find yourself, and you have decided to channel so much energy and working yourself and building yourself and career and everything in that space. Let's talk about how you identify this gap and what made you think this is where I need to be in this particular industry that you find yourself in.
Yeah, I think two points. First is how I identify the gap. So when I was studying law, I was a big tech enthusiast. So I was not studying the law like how traditionally people study the law. I don't know how even old this was, but this is so many years ago where you'd have to do typical research with books, big books, which do not happen these days. And I didn't like that approach. So I identified a gap there just from the education front that why do I have to be doing all this legal research with books? So that gap was where I wanted to fill. So that whole enthusiasm started from do we have to study the law in a different way? So that got me into testing, prototyping some ideas, which ended up in working with some of the best legal tech companies in Ghana. But so I approach every environment that how can tech solve this problem? I don't approach it with the way they do it now. And I think on the second part, what was your second question?
In terms of how did you, when you found that gap, how did you then channel yourself to know that this is the gap I need to fill?
Yeah, I think it's try, and definitely you definitely fill in there fully. I did not set out to do what I am doing right now. It was a lot of try and a lot of failure. So you see that the trajectory, like I mentioned as we started, was everybody goes to law school to become a lawyer. But when I saw that, okay, there's a bigger gap in legal innovation in Ghana, in the African ecosystem, I was like, okay, I'm going to try and see how best I could fill the gap. But don't get me wrong, I was learning a lot from the other sectors. So fintech is one of the sectors that have really translated a lot of the things that I saw there, just to make sure that whatever I learned there, we could replicate it in the legal ecosystem. So it's a lot of identify the bigger challenges, but tapping in from different industries to see how you can replicate it in the legal ecosystem.
Amazing. You talk about challenges, right? You realize that some of these industries, for example, law, medicine, accounting in some way, some of these traditional, in quotes, traditional industries, it's quite difficult finding or innovating in that space. What made you think that it could be different, and what kind of challenges did you navigate during that period?
Yeah, so this, and I think I've seen a lot of these conversations these days, and I think people approach it in a wrong way. Reason why I'm saying it is that the legal profession, the financial ecosystem, the medical system or medicine is very, 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 very like sensitive. So they are built on processes or risk. So for example, law is primarily or the legal is mostly built on precedent if you are taught the common law. So we are built or taught in a way that we have to follow what the legal processes say. Same for the finance ecosystem. You can't take risk with people's money. Same for medicine. You can't try with other processes on how to save someone. So the reason why these people resist change is that what they do is extremely sensitive, so they cannot try. I may not be able to say a lot for engineering, but I think they have a little wiggle room to do other different things. So because these industries are being built in that way, you have to be very careful in adapting innovation or adapting some of these technologies. So I understand it from that point, but what you have to do when you are working around these industries is that you need to teach them or learn how to build trust with them. And that's what we have done, or I have done in mostly some of the products I've built of the people that I've worked with. So you have to let them trust that what you are doing or the product or what you are going to introduce to them, the processes, the system, is actually going to work. Because if the lawyer cannot trust you, they cannot give you the permission to actually even use their data because they are dealing with very high volume
Yeah,
of cases and
yeah.
clients who have signed a lot of contracts to make sure that they deal with them perfectly. For example, I'll give you one example in fintech. I think we are sometimes very harsh within our ecosystem that we are not allowing innovation, particularly Ghana. I'll be very blunt with it. But I think we have to be very careful when.
Okay, so we're talking about the traditional institutions, and quite a number of us work in those institutions anyway. And what we would see, from my experience, it is quite difficult innovating within the space because, in quotes, they are kind of legacy institutions. So we follow principles and work according to how it needs to be worked in. But you have done amazing, found a way to innovate within that space. Let's talk about how you're able to find this gap, how you're able to identify and say that this is where I need to innovate, and how can I channel it to channel that innovation in that space.
Yeah, I think, yeah, thanks, Ima. I think the real issue here is that this conversation is looked at differently, especially online these days. I think there is a whole stigma around lawyers do not like technology, lawyers do not embrace innovation. Similarly, you can say that for finance, medical, or even the education system. But I have a very different opinion about it. I think these systems have a huge sensitivity around them. I can speak for legal. Legal is built on a lot of precedent. So if you were taught the common law, we are built on some of the precedents that have already been set. We are dealing with regulations. I don't think that somebody who has to deal with regulations does not want to embrace innovation. I think they don't like uncertainty. They have to be certain that what you want to do actually works. And you can say same for the finance industry. Someone who is handling your money has to be very certain that the innovation or innovative idea that you are bringing actually works. And sometimes we get a lot of commentary running online that some of our financial institutions do not want people to innovate and all of that. I think that we look at it from a very wrong perspective. These are people handling huge sums of money and they have to be very careful. And even about the medical industry, would you want a doctor to be trialing an innovative tool just because they want to save your life? No. What I have done or what the industry has seen works is that you have to build trust with these people. So before you give an innovative tool to a lawyer, you have to work around a process for the lawyer to trust that tool so that at the end of the day, if they are using it, they have extra confidence in it. If you want to innovate within the fintech area, the regulator must trust it. If they do not trust it, they cannot give you the license to operate.
Yeah. So you know this issue, right? When you how do you when you are what I want us to do is talk to somebody that works within the space, and somebody's working within the space looking for ways to say they've got varied forms of ideas of how something needs to be done within the space, but because of that limitation, that there is not much room for people to implement some of the ideas, people sometimes lose the opportunity to innovate in this space, and therefore the ideas die, either because they're not getting the opportunity to do that, or they're not getting the backing to do that. How do you think people can go about, or what do people need to do when they have an idea to implement within this space? What do you think is let's talk about the first three things you think they need to do to help them go through and push their innovation through in this space?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to don't stop building, right? I have seen people build in a very bullish environment where the regulators were on their neck every now and then, like some of the bigger economies have seen this happen over the years. When digital banks were starting up in the UK, they didn't have the backing of the FCA and the rest, the Bank of England and the rest, but they didn't stop building. So one is never stop building. You may not be able to take the product live to actually get your real users to use it, but continue building. That is one. Two is that never stop engaging with the regulators or the people or the stakeholders who matter in the ecosystem. I think you have to think around the process of selling that idea or project or product to them in the simplest form. I've seen or experienced people who have very innovative ideas, but it goes to the stakeholders talking to them in languages that they do not understand. I can use blockchain, for example. I can use cryptocurrency, for example. At the time, the people who are behind these industries were starting up their career or getting to where they are, blockchain was not where it is at the moment. So you cannot go to them talking to them in the language of how blockchain works now. You have to break it down. And I'm not saying just breaking down those is going to work, but they understanding it is actually where it starts from. The final part, which I would say, is that you have to collaborate with other people in different industries. For example, we in the legal tech ecosystem, we are babies, we are pretty much new. You can't do it alone. You cannot innovate alone. You have to tap into the people in the other sectors. I think in the African or Ghanaian ecosystem, fintech has taken the lead. You see that they are operating sandbox-like environments in Ghana and the rest. So how do you get the regulators to also understand that you can do something similar? So don't stop building, engage the stakeholders and collaborate.
Great, great, great. Don't stop building, engage the stakeholders, and collaborate. Now, I see that from the perspective of somebody who wants to go up and build a startup. But for you, for example, innovation came through when you were working within an organization or within the space in the industry. And then you then decided that you then saw the opportunity to say that, or even when you were schooling and you saw the opportunity to say that there is a problem here, there is a gap here that I need to fill. And therefore, you went ahead to do a lot of research and do that. So let's talk about somebody that is working within an organization, a traditional organization in that sense, and is thinking of ideas, has seen gaps, and is thinking of ideas, but does not want to move away to start something, but wants to innovate it through the institution. What do you think?
Yeah, so that one I don't have three. I have just one thing, which is don't think like an insider. So, and I will speak from environments which I've operated in, particularly legal. I can't speak with the finance departments or ecosystems, but with legal, if you think like an insider, you can't innovate
Mm-hmm.
because there are processes that you have to follow. So, if you are within legal and you want to be an innovator, don't think like them. You have to think outside the way they think very out of the box. How can we simplify this process? If you want to simplify a process for an illegal ecosystem, you cannot come to them with the same papers that they come to with. You cannot do like that. You have to go outside and use diagramming tools, prototyping tools, do stuff that do not exist. So when you do them and it actually works, you can actually make a case and speak to the people that, okay, I did this. I did a whole proof of concept by myself. This is how the thing worked. So why don't we do this? But if you keep speaking inside, making assumptions that this cannot work, so they should do it this year, I don't think you'd be fair to the people that you work with in the ecosystem.
Amazing. So think outside the box. Do not think like an insider, but think like an outsider. That way you see what the people need so you can implement that. Then in terms of that, let's look at how somebody can even identify the pain points in the first place. How did you go about that? Because I'm working in an organization, I'm working in an institution. I'm even if I'm not working, I'm looking within the space, I'm schooling, and there are quite a number of things around me. But how do I identify the pain points and say that we can change this, we can do something about this thing?
I'll use the technical word in product management, which is user research. It's as technical as that, but I think when you break it down to the simplest form, you have to understand users. When you see problems from the outside, sometimes you think that it's really a problem, but sometimes it's actually not a problem. So if you really want to identify pain points, I would say you have to do research about the users. There are so many ways people do their user research, depending on the resources you have, depending whether you're just one human being, depending on you're a company, you're a startup. There are so many processes, but you have to speak to the people. You have to sit them down and say that, okay, this is what I have seen. Why is it this way? Then you realize that they give you so many background contexts and processes why this end up here. When you take that and you go and think around it, you would realize that you actually don't even need to build any product for them. You can help them improve on what they have already or what they are doing. And this is not just even on the startup or the founder side. Even if you are an insider and you are thinking, okay, why does when a file moves from office A to B, it always gets stuck there? You may not understand why it gets stuck just because you are really you are very eager to get your work done and all of that. But speak to the people, understand their problems. Sometimes it's probably because as basic as they don't even have internet access. It's probably because they need a cloud solution to facilitate something. And you can just always get those fixed without doing any magic or creating anything out of the box.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I like the fact that you talk about the fact of user research. And one thing I can add to that is, for example, there are everyday problems that you see around you that you can, in a way, try to see if other people are experiencing the same problem. And if they're experiencing the same problem, you conduct that research to make sure that it is not just a problem for a few people, but a generic problem for quite a number of people. That way you can find an innovative way of solving that problem. Even if it's not building a product, finding a way that you can turn things around by putting the simple things in to help them solve whatever pain points that they have. Great. Let's talk about so I found the problem. I have found that it is there is something I can do about the problem, and I need to speak to, because we were in an organization, or I want to do something about it, because I need to speak to whoever and present to them that we can do something about this particular problem. What do I need, and what steps do I need to take to speak to them so that they understand where I'm coming from and they understand the solution that I'm presenting to them?
Yeah, so this can be broken down to different ways. Depends on the industry you works in, right? But basically, everything you need to make a business case for it. Business case can be a presentation, can be a document, can be a prototype, can be anything. So it depends on where you find yourself. So I would say that look at it in three different formats, right? Where the problem is from, what the solutions you are proposing, and what the impact could look like. No matter how you look at your document, depending on how you want to make your business case, you have to give that history of the problem, the solutions, and the impact. That way, if you present that business case to whoever, whether it is a product you want to build as a founder, whether you're an insider, if you look at it in these three formats, it can actually make whatever you're looking to do work. But I'll add something to that. I think there's a bigger challenge I have seen these days, and maybe it's just my opinion, that there is so much around processes and principles that people actually think that that is the only way to do things. You can't actually get a lot of things done in so many different ways, right? I call product discovery what I do before I build a product. But a lot of the time, some of the things that I do or a product manager will do, you can also do it in so many different formats. So the reason why I'm trying to move away from terminologies is that anyhow you want to do it. If it's a deck you want to do, you can do it. If it's a document you want to put together, you can do it. If it's a diagram you want to put together, make sure these three clear things are coming out from this: the problem, the solutions, and the impact. Is there any impact? Is it going to cut any time that we spend? Is it going to increase our revenue? Let those be seen in your final business case.
It's amazing how you mentioned about problem, solution, and impact, because now we're in a different environment. We've moved to a different environment, so we're able to decipher some of these things. But you realize that from Ghana, for example, you realize that when people are presenting issues, they talk mostly about the problems, and then we'll now have to fish out and draw out from them the solutions and then the impact. So it's amazing you mentioned this, and I'll just like to admonish everybody: if you found a pain point in your organization, you found a pain point in your industry that you want to help address, do not just go to your superior and talk about the problem alone. This is a problem. Yes, you have found a problem, but what solution are you proposing or recommending, and what impact do you think is going to have on the process, the people, the organization itself? Is it going to have an impact on revenue? Make sure you have this. As Michel has mentioned, the problem, solution, impact is very key for turning things around in that way. Now, we found the problem. We have built a business case where we've identified the problem, solution, and impact, and we are presenting it to make sure that we get buy-in, but we're not getting buy-in. For you, for example, did you face any challenge in that space where you decided to change the status quo and say that, yes, this is law? Law means we're going to step into the courtroom, but I've seen a lot of gaps there, and I can turn things around. What challenges did you go through? And for example, somebody's facing those challenges, how do they navigate those challenges?
Yeah, so this is long. This is a whole conversation for another day. Getting buy-ins. I think you will never get it. That's my hard opinion. You will never get buy-in. It's because of how rapid technology is evolving these days. Like, for example, how AI is moving these days. I don't think any stakeholder, any manager, any board is going to give you a full day buy-in just because you think this is the solution, this is the impact. Because technology is moving at a very quick pace. 5 years ago, I would have said you could get buy-in, but today you wouldn't get a buy-in. But you never stop. You keep going. But I look at it two ways. Before you think about getting the buy-in, run. The basic word is proof of concept. You may call it a prototype, whatever. Try and get something that you think works. You think this is what you're talking about before you start pushing stakeholders on their neck to actually buy into what you're saying. Because you cannot just still sell ideas. I am a believer on results. So show them something. You may need a few resources here and there. You can get some resources if you're working in an organization to just look at your proof of concepts around the process, and when you're done with there, you can go to them to go and talk about buy-ins in further, but you never get it. And I brought AI in for a reason, is that as of the time we are recording this podcast, O3 Mini is out. If I had seen O3 Mini a month or two ago, I would have think about some of the things I have done differently. So imagine I have shouted buying to some people. What would they have said when they see O3 Mini? So it's quite very tricky these days because of how tech is moving. And also, last thing before I move on to the other part, technology is not just AI. There is a lot in
Mm-hmm.
technology. People are misconstruing technology as just AI. AI came to meet tech.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot you can do with technology. So artificial intelligence on its own is not just technology. So people should try and separate that from AI. It's just helping us do our life and do stuff easier. But AI is not just what we think it is. Tech came and AI came after that.
Yeah, thank you. So great. It will be hard to get buy-in because of the innovation you're going to implement, but show proof of concept, show something, and let them work at it and make sure it is working. Now, before we go on, I'd just like to tell you about Moyo Streams. So Moyo Streams is sponsoring this event, and if you can look on the screen, and you can contact them if you're doing any videography and anything related to videography within the UK. If you need to shoot a podcast or any event, just contact Moyo Streams. Their details are there, and you can contact them for any event. All right, so let's talk about this now. Luckily for me, I have got the opportunity to get some kind of buy-in, and I've been given the opportunity to implement the idea. How do I go about implementing the idea that I have been given the opportunity to?
So it's also so big to discuss. Depends if you're a founder or working in a company, so many ways to look at it. But I think you need a roadmap. So, and I talk in this sense because I'm a product manager. Road mapping is so important. It gives you a clear foresight of what is ahead of you. So if you got your buy-in about to do an implementation, you need a bigger roadmap on whatever you want to do. Roadmaps are not just related to products alone. You have people call it maybe a timeline or whatever you want to see, but I call it maybe roadmap because of where I'm coming from. So roadmap is the next step. Have a very clear foresight of where you are going, chunks of what you can achieve in a month, what you can achieve in second month, third month, depending on whatever you are looking at or whatever you are building or processes you're improving. When you have that, you can take your stakeholders along regularly, give them the quick wins at the end of month one. This is what we've been able to do because of what I was talking about, where we are heading to. That way, you improve on your buy-ins because they are not waiting to the end of the entire roadmap or the timeline to see what you want to achieve. Some call in our word sprints, what we can achieve in a sprint can also showcase that okay, we will get to this at the end of all our sprints and know that this is what we are going to build. So build a very bigger roadmap and a very huge timeline, or anyhow you may call it, so that you can be able to communicate effectively when you're implementing the solution.
Amazing. So if you're a founder or you're still working in an organization and you've been given the opportunity to implement that idea, have a roadmap. Know what you want to do at every point in time. Know how you are going to achieve your milestones within the period and across growing the product or the idea you are implementing. And that should really, really help you along the way, is it?
Yeah, and I was going to say that for founders, I could have added like we have a bigger thing people call go-to-market strategy, that a lot of founders do not take their go-to-market strategies very as serious as they should. They are so obsessed with building their products, which is good. But if you don't have a very good go-to-market strategy, you may not be as successful as you think your idea is so brilliant. So one key thing aside having your product roadmap where you used to build your product, your proof of concept or your MVP or anyhow you may call it, have a very good go-to-market strategy that can give you an idea of how you're entering the market, where you'll be at the end of a quarter, at the end of 6 months, what you're trying to, you understand your users more. So go-to-market strategy is one for
Yeah.
founders.
Very, very necessary. So go to market strategy is very, very necessary. So at least we've gone through the step-by-step process. If you have an idea, even in the traditional organization that you're working in, and you want to implement it, go through this process, get speak to people, conduct some user research, and if given the opportunity, have a roadmap and a go-to-market strategy, and that should help you very well. I hope that if you go through these steps, it will really push you to conduct that innovative product, or to build that innovative product, or implement that idea that you want to implement within the space that you want to work in. Now, Michelle, let's we've spoken about products. Now let's talk about Lawtech, the launch. You're going to talk to us about it, how that concept came about, and yeah, talk to us about Lawtech.
Legal Tech Lounge. It's as simple as a lounge where people sit just comfortably or have any discussion or talk or whatever. Lounge as it may seem, that's literally. But how did it start? So 5 years ago, I used to write a newsletter called Lawyers Will Beat AI. But that conversation is also for another day. I don't think lawyers can beat AI. I was making a point. I'll come back to legal tech launch. I was making a point that I have seen a lot of people making noise that AI is going to replace lawyers. This is 5 years ago, before the chat GPT noise. And I've seen that coming, so I started writing that I disagree. So every 2 weeks, I have my audience who know this. I was writing to say, no, this is why lawyers will beat AI, this and that and all that. So I built a community around the newsletter, which now sits around almost 2,300 people on the newsletter. Then when we built the community, we realized that you cannot build a community without in-person interactions. So 2 years ago, I was going to Ghana just for holidays, like the usual thing. Then I have a very big Twitter account. People who know me know. I don't make noise, but I've been there for a while. So when I say something, it gets to an audience. So I tweeted that whether there are any few people here want to hang out to have conversations on legal innovation. I was expecting 30 people because I put a number there. Then we had almost 2,000 people respond to the poll. Now, like, okay,
Amazing.
this is something interesting. Why are 2,000 people interested in having conversation in legal innovation? So I called my friend Paul, longtime friend. Paul and I do a lot of stuff together. And we're like, okay, can we just do this as an event? So we made a few calls and made a decision to organize Accra Lawtech Hangout. So Legal Tech Lounge is something started as a newsletter, but now we have Accra Lawtech Hangout where we've decided to host a community for conversations within the legal innovation space. I don't know if you want me to talk about Accra Lawtech Hangout now or
Yeah. So great. So you see, there is what I want to tell you is that whatever industry you find yourself, regardless of it being in the legal industry or regardless of it being in the medical industry, there are opportunities to innovate. So long as you have the idea and you find a way, the roadmap, you draw the roadmap that you want to carry on, just find a way that it will work. First of all, do the user research and find a way that it will work and try to implement that idea. The idea came up. You wanted to just have a hangout with people. And this is a typical traditional industry we're talking about, where now you realize that there was so much demand for people. So people are thinking about innovations even in the industry they found themselves. And you bet that idea of the legal tech launch, right? And now it has become Accra Tech launch. In that same way, if somebody has an idea, what do you think they should do? How then should they go about, for example, a similar idea? How then do they go about turning this idea around and making it a
I
reality?
think just on the side, they should come to me for consultation. I don't think I spilled the
Yeah, I
secrets
think
here.
we'll put
Yeah.
Michelle's
Oh, yeah.
consultation in
Yeah,
this
but on
next
a
link.
more serious note, I think what you can learn from what we've built with Legal Tech Launch is that you need to build an audience. You cannot just start something out of the blue. And there's a reason why products launch with wait list, which a lot of people in our African market do not take good advantage of. I know people do it, but people don't do it as well as I see in other market. So build an audience before you actually come out. You can decide not to even come out. Nobody will beat you up. And I've seen or people know that there's something called stealth mode.
Mm-hmm.
People build companies in stealth
Yeah.
mode and come out in 2 years, year, 5 years even. I've seen a company come out stealth mode after 5 years. So what they were doing is they were incubating, testing stuff with their audience, understand why they want to do this and all of that. So simple. If you want to do something very similar, don't just wake up one day. If you realize everything started from the newsletter. Yours could not be a newsletter, it could be something else. If you're launching a product, think about building a wait list. How can you communicate effectively to your people on your wait list? Build a human related wait list. I've seen so many abstract, like people build so many generic email newsletters which people could not relate to. I read almost all my newsletters every weekend because there are stuff that I could relate to, and that's why I'm subscribed. So don't build any wait list and leave it there and think that people will just be reading it. But build an audience first before you think about doing anything.
Yeah, amazing. So if you want to implement a similar idea to Legal Tech Launch, build an audience. Even if you want to build a product, I've said it. The important thing is to build an audience for that by launching the wait list and see how many people are getting onto your wait list. That gives you an idea that there is demand for your product. There is demand for whatever innovation you want to implement. And therefore, you can go ahead and implement or find ways to do the roadmap and implement that. Back to now you call Accra Legal Tech Launch. Accra Lawtech Launch. Hangout. Oh, amazing. Let's talk about the transition because I knew it as Legal Tech Launch and now we are at Accra Lawtech Hangout.
Yeah. So not a big transition. So Legal Tech Launch is the non-profit company where we are trying to support people to transition from wherever they were, whether traditional law practice, to get into legal innovation, and also trying to shape the legal education conversation to adapt new models. That's what Legal Tech Launch does. But Accra Law Tech Hangout has become our flagship product. So this is an annual event where we are doing. Last year we had almost 500 people come across 12 countries in Africa.
Amazing.
Come to Accra just to have
Amazing.
conversation in legal innovation. So Accra Law Tech Hangout is one of our products, and I can say it here first on this podcast that we are about to launch another product called Africa Legal Hackathon.
You heard it first, yeah.
So what Africa Legal Hackathon is going to do is that we are very early in legal tech in Africa. We don't have enough products,
Yeah.
very few products.
Yeah.
So you're trying to set up a hackathon, build a challenge where people will come and solve this challenge. Companies can be birthed out of this hackathon.
Yeah.
We'll try to make sure people are able to build very, very good products out of the hackathon,
Yeah.
and see how we can support them after the hackathon. If they need any support in terms of building a company, need resources to fast track their growth. So that is coming up, African Legal Hackathon. Just look out for it.
Yeah. So just look out for it. You heard it here first, and we'll put, if Michel allows, we'll put his socials in the description so you can connect with Michel and you can seek for more advice and also for consultation. Book for consultation. Yeah. So where do you see Legal Tech Lounge? Where do you see Legal Tech Lounge going?
So we are aiming with big goals, and I said this at our last event that we are trying everything we can to position Ghana as the center of legal innovation in Africa. Not in the words building in a building, but if you think about legal technology, if you think about legal innovation, anything that you think about in Africa, you should come to Ghana. Why should you come to Ghana? I think the entire tech ecosystem is backed by legal. You cannot do anything you cannot do anything in tech without the legal backing. You can't even start a company without registering it. So everything about the noise we make about fintech, whatever tech industry we have in Africa, I think legal technology is going to power it. So we are doing our best to position Legal Tech Lounge as a center of legal innovation in Africa and an enabling environment where we are looking to, as best as possible, collaborate with the stakeholders, whether government, private sector, investors, venture capitalists, to see how best we can create products that we can take to the world. And I'm saying this out of what a community can do for people who come in there. Not that we are planning to build anything, but the people who come to the community should build mindsets and we can export products. For now, as we speak, there are so many big, huge fintechs that are being used in Ghana,
Yeah.
and they are not Ghanaian
Yeah.
companies. How do we also build legal tech companies that could be used in other places in Africa?
Amazing, 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 amazing. And as we come to an end, you mentioned a final word that I want us to land on: mindset. Mindset. There's been a lot in terms of the, I understand the environment sometimes shapes our mindset in a certain way, and having the opportunity to move around, or in the earlier year I did a video about telling people to travel, even if it's just within the country, but move to a different town, because that gives you the opportunity to see things from a different perspective. So having the opportunity to move around a bit, I believe it has shaped your mindset in a different way. So when we talk about mindset, I just want you to expose a little on it and look at where you came from and where you are now, how the environment you find yourself in has shaped your mindset, and even with the fact that people, wherever they are, how then they able to shape their mindset for production, being productive.
Oh, I think you might want to get me into trouble because people may not be happy with some of the things I would say, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
I think we have to do a lot about mindsets. I grew up in Ghana, right? And the people who are very close to me know how I think. If you are not very close to me, you wouldn't know how I think. But I really like challenging the status quo. And that is why I have been able to navigate this legal tech ecosystem very quickly. And it's even back to the point I said earlier about not thinking like an insider. So if you are in Ghana, if you're in Africa, you have to challenge the status quo. You have to also be obsessed. The word is obsession with people who have done it. I have a long list of people I'm obsessed with, and I can literally sit here and say some of the words that they even said in their interviews. It's not because I'm trying to copy them, but it's because these guys have done it. So the YouTube, the internet is like the biggest library you can ever have on YouTube. Identify some people that you're obsessed with, no matter where you find yourself in the world. If you consistently watch these people, it will reshape your mindset. That is one aspect. The other aspect is traveling. Not everybody have the resources to
Yeah.
travel, but if you can, even in Ghana, move out of your region. If you live in Kumasi,
Yeah.
just go and stay in Tamale for
Mm-hmm.
1 week.
Mm-hmm.
When you come back to Kumasi, you see things differently.
Yeah.
Accra, go to Kumasi, you see a lot of things differently. It's very funny because people go to different parts of Ghana for various reasons, whether for funeral, wedding, go to family. But people would never ever think that let me leave Accra and go to Kumasi in their corporate area
Mm-hmm.
where their big businesses are and just visit 2 or 3 offices. And there's also a bigger thing, sorry, I'm going too
No
long,
worries.
that people think that they can't go into offices. People think that they don't have any business in an office, so they cannot go there. I've entered so many buildings where people are so willing to talk to people.
Yeah.
So if you live in Accra, just take 3 days, go to Kumasi, identify 3 companies, send them an email, go on LinkedIn. We never spoke about LinkedIn, by
Yeah.
the way, but I think it's the best tool that has ever happened into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Find the names, go find these people, message them. Hey, I'm this, I want to come to your office to just talk to you about this. It may not work, but you try 5, 10 people, it'll work. as soon as you live in Kumasi for 3 days, when it comes to Accra, your mindset changes. And this is just the basic thing about people who cannot travel outside. When you travel outside the country, that's just like you see ecosystems are developed
Yeah.
to shape you. But I think there's even more to learn within your jurisdiction than even just going outside.
Yeah.
So a lot about the way you can look at things online to learn, be obsessed with people, and just move around. Don't stay in one place for long.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So people, we really need to renew and reform our thinking and also challenge the status quo to move or inform on the way we do things. Because for us to progress, we need to change our mindset. All right. And thank you, Michelle, for joining us today. I don't know if we have some final words you want to share and pour out to the people.
No, I don't think I have any extraordinary final words, but thanks, guys, for starting this conversation. I think it's very useful. There's a lot that's going to reshape in how people who listen or consume your content, like you see the impacts come out very shortly. You see that some of the things that people share here have helped people do stuff and all of that. So just keep up the good work. And if anybody is interested in legal technology or whatever has to do with the fusion of law and technology, the website for what we do is legaltechlounge.com. But thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Yeah, Legal Tech Lounge. And if you want to follow Michelle, his details will be in the description. Kindly follow him and tell him you met him on Rise and Build as well. All right. Yeah. So he said you should follow people, be obsessed with people. Please follow Rise and Build, subscribe to Rise and Build, and catch you next time when we bring new people to the board. Catch you later and tell them we are coming. See you.